Sean Morris with Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit.
And back is Tim with the Fifth Ward podcast. How we doing today, Sean?
Hey, Timmy, it's good to see you. Hey, podcast number 10 today, I
Yeah, I
believe.
believe it's number 10. We're rolling along. And hey, let's get started.
Okay, let's get started. First, let's start with something that we talked about last week that I thought was a great thing happening in the city, and that was the ability to try to raise some money for our veterans for the Cohoes American Legion. We had one show. We talked about it for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and it looks like we raised at least $1,000 between the two of us
Yep.
for the American Legion's roof. I'm going to keep encouraging people. You know what's great about Cohoes? Um, the people in Cohoes are great, right?
Yeah.
I've always said that about our country. What makes this country great is the people. When the people are great, the country's great. When the people stop being great, so won't this country. Cohoes is the same way, right?
Yep.
People always seem to just gather around each other and help in time of need. I've seen it in my career as a firefighter. You've seen it in things that you've been part of, the Little League, and trying to help families. And in a short couple minutes, we talked about it and we raised $1,000 for the American Legion. So I want to thank all the people from Cohoes. And I want to encourage you, if you can still help, we still need a few more $1,000. So if you're listening to the show and you want to help, you can contact me or you can contact Timmy. Some people went right to the American Legion. Some people sent checks, took a picture, put it on Facebook, and said, "Hey, we're trying to help the Legion." So however you want to help, we would really appreciate it. The Legion would appreciate it. And I know next week I'm going to try to contact the commander of the Legion in the next few days and try to get him on the show just for 5 minutes to talk about the club and what they're trying to do with the money and what they do for the community. So to all the Cohosiers out there and people who weren't from Cohoes, just veterans or people who love veterans, thank you for your contribution. It's really going to help us go a long way for the center's or for the Legion's roof.
Yeah, well, what I think I got to do is I'm going to get a hold of Gil Ethier here. The Cohoes Democratic Committee uses that back hall oftentimes for meetings and things like that, and they should throw a few bucks their way too.
Yeah, and I'm sure he will. Gil's
And
always
yeah,
been good at
yep,
giving to the community,
yep,
and so hasn't the Democratic Party.
yeah,
And you're right; they use it all the time for their parties. The firefighters, everybody. It is not
everybody,
just a building, right?
right,
I said this before. It's a living, breathing memorial to our veterans. It's a place where they go and they gather and they have social events and they
yep,
kind of stay in contact with each other. It's a very important place for veterans, and
right.
we just want to do our part here at Cohoes, the good, bad, and the ugly. That would really be something good to see this roof go on and know that we were part of it, and all of the people watching the show made contributions. So again, Cohoes American Legion, we could use your help, and for those who have already given, thank you so much. And we'll keep talking about it until we raise the money, right, Timmy?
That's right, right, that's right. Yep.
So what else is going on, my friend?
Mm. Well, look at what we have is another issue, and I keep hating to pound away at ambulance, but we're getting a lot of reports, and people are sending info our way. I guess the problem with the new contract they signed is we don't understand what they mean by 16/7. I mean, we have one ambulance that's covering for 24 hours, 7 days a week, but a second one as for 16 hours and seven. And it seems that every time we seem to need an ambulance, they're not available. Now we have ambulance itself calling like Mohawk or whatever to come in the Cohoes and take care of calls.
Yeah, this while it may be redundant to keep talking about it, it's one of the big, if not one of the biggest issues the city's had in,
Well, it's
in
public
many.
safety. It's
Yeah,
public
it's
safety.
more than public safety, though, right? Because
Yeah.
public safety is the ambulance, public safety is the firefighters, public
Yep.
safety is providing a service. But man, we've had a screw up after screw up after screw up trying to just solve a really simple problem.
Yep.
And here's the problem. We don't even know what the hell they're doing because they don't know what they're doing. We found out we had a free opportunity. They hid that from the community. That free opportunity is now gone. They went out for bid for a ambulance, and now we have what was a $60,000 or $50,000 a month bill for an ambulance. Now it's an $88,000 bill. I'll
Yeah,
stand corrected, but it's in that neighborhood.
that's what I'm seeing on the paperwork.
And
It's
that's for
88,000.
24 hours a day, and then another one for 16 hours a day. The question is, when's the 16 hours start? Does anybody
Which
know? Because we had a fire the other day, and they didn't have an ambulance available. So they called Mohawk. Mohawk, unfortunately, said we can't make it just to go sit, in standby, because we're trying to run a business and answer
right,
emergency calls. We're not going to
right.
just sit on the side of the road so that you have an ambulance there. You guys need to handle that with your
No,
in-house ambulance, which is ambulance. And
right.
and tell me this isn't ironic. If this doesn't say a whole lot, then I don't know what else could be said. They're having a meeting about signing a contract for $88,000 a month.
Hmm.
$88,000 a month.
Yeah, that's a 38,000 a month increase.
Yeah, but more importantly, there's a couple calls for an ambulance and they didn't have any, and they had to call the one they turned down, which was
Right.
Mohawk, to come to
Mohawk.
the city.
Yeah,
So while they're negotiating signing a deal for $88,000 a month, they don't have no ambulance to answer the calls. The
right.
ambulance company that they're signing doesn't have the ambulances to answer the calls during the meeting for which they're going to sign an $88,000 contract. And Mohawk has to come. Now, let me just tell you, Mohawk had to come from a long way because, when the city turned down their free proposal, which would have had an ambulance in
Yeah,
Cohoes, it may not have been parked where they wanted, but it would have been in
right.
Cohoes.
One came
Um,
from Brunswick, I believe, and the other came from Albany. Am I correct on it? One from
all I know
Albany.
is that there was some comments made that
Yeah,
it took 40 minutes to get here.
yeah,
I
from
looked at the
Brunswick.
numbers.
Yeah, and
I have the
Albany.
numbers. It took 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Brunswick's a long drive.
yeah,
Albany's a long drive for an emergency.
yeah.
But the mere point that the city finds it okay on those particular days to call that ambulance, but they don't find it okay to have that ambulance stay here for free and answer all the calls within minutes is kind of bizarre to me.
Right, and Mohawk is not on the ready for us because we have a service here. Okay,
Correct. That's why when they said we can't come sit by the fire, you got your own. You just paid 88,000. Why ain't they sitting there?
that's
We're
right.
not going to give up our emergency calls to sit in the city calls while the firemen put out a fire.
Right, we're
That's what
paying
your
for a
city ambulance
service.
is
Yeah,
for.
and we're paying for that service.
Now this company, I can only underscore it. People, if you're listening to this, hear this out. Hear me loud and clear. Mohawk Ambulance said, we will come for free. We will have an ambulance in the city. We have 30 ambulances working every day. You won't even have to worry about backups because when our ambulance responds, we'll send another one. They'll be here quicker than you have now, better than you had before, and it will cost you the same, nothing. And the
And look
city
at
turned it down for
right,
88,000 a month.
and look, the vote was 4-2, and it was the typical bobbleheads: Christopher Briggs, okay, Don Russell, and it was Billy McCarthy who painted himself into a corner, being on a board of managers and pushing this thing, and of course, bobblehead king Justin Alicio of the
Yeah, well,
hat of the half Van Skyke Island now.
well, he did make it at least a quarter of it's missing, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just so many things are hard to explain because they make no sense. When I was involved in government, I said government causes more problems than they ever fix. They are one of the biggest problems because we don't always have the best people who get elected. In small communities, you get elected because you know the most people, right? It isn't because you're the best and the brightest all the time. It's
Yep.
because you know the most people. And sometimes people then get into positions where they've never been in their whole life. They don't know how to do the job. They think it's simple. And then you get in there and you find a really simple problem if you're used to government. And it turns into a major malfunction because you don't know what you're doing. And that's what's happened with this ambulance.
Yep.
This is an example of something should have been easily fixed by somebody who's been involved in government and understands the process. And instead, we have a mayor that doesn't understand the process, and he's made it worse. Now we're
Yep.
talking about a double-digit tax increase on top of that. So we have an ambulance company that we're now paying. It went from 50,000 to 88,000. We just gave out, big raises to the firefighters over the course of the next 4 years. Big raises. I shouldn't say big, but raises to each one of these unions, and they deserve raises. But you have to take in consideration now you have $88,000 a month that you never had to pay for before. There's other bills that you're paying for, like lights, that you're spending hundreds of thousands more than they were before you decided to try to fix them and cause more problems. We have this ball rolling down the hill, Timmy, faster and faster and faster and faster, and more things are getting screwed up. It's running things over, and there's no way to stop these trains when they get out of hand. You know what happens? The city goes broke.
Yep.
And once the city goes broke and you raise taxes as high as you can take them, you know what happens? Now you pay more, you get less. And that's what's happening in the city.
Well,
you're going to pay more and get less.
Well, what I want to do is I want to dub the new thing going on down in Van Skyke Island.
Excuse me, Tim. I got a little cold.
Yeah, where we we have amber alerts, but now that the island is now divided, I'm calling it Alicio alerts. Okay. Basically, what's going on here is we're seeing a few more businesses there that are struggling, or maybe not even struggling, but looking to be sold, such as Tugboat. Um, they're on the market. I think Tita Marie's is already shut down and moved down.
Well, they're
down
still open, but they're moving really soon.
They're moving to Watervliet soon. Okay, so you're losing more and more people on the island. Now you got a divided island. Okay, and
Timmy, that's what I'm talking to you about when I say the snowball effect.
Yes.
Everything that they have done from day one, when they said, don't worry, we could take over, we'll hit the ground running, and it'll be better than it's ever been before. I've heard everybody say that for 50 years. Nothing can compare to what we did in 3 years. Nothing. I've been in this city my whole life. What we've accomplished in 3 years was remarkable. What they have ruined in 3 years is remarkable. And the snowball effect is just going to keep getting bigger. I mean, if you think about it, I had a friend of mine send me a message saying, I talked to my sister and all you guys do is talk about the bad things at Cohoes. And I said, that's not true. We really try to find as many good things to talk about and the bad things, because we want to bring to light the city as a whole, things that most people wouldn't know what's going on. But trying to find real good things is hard. We could go to the city's website and say, okay, on such and such dates, the city spring cleanup day, or on such and such dates, this, this day or that day. That's all good and well. But you could find that yourself. We're trying to bring people things that they wouldn't know that were happening.
Yeah,
and they don't know the inside scoop.
Right.
What good is it? I could do a whole show on the Easter Bunny. What good is that? How many people are going to pay attention to our show if we're just talking about, the Easter Bunny?
And we do get feedback. We get feedback, and people say, "Oh, all you do is talk." No, we want to talk about the good as well. It's just we got to dig for it.
And there's only so much time each week. We only have up to an hour, and that's a long podcast for a lot of people. They don't get to hear the whole thing, so they try to go through it as fast as they can. We're trying to bring to the people things that are happening in their city that they should know about, whether they're good, bad, or indifferent. And that's what we're trying to do. And so the ambulance, redundant. Holy shit, we've been talking about the ambulance for our 4th show. But there's nothing more important because it's the biggest topic the city's had in the last 50 years.
Well, considering the cost that we're paying each month, and considering even the ambulance that we're looking to contract for, are calling their competitors to come in to Cohoes. I mean, that's mind-blowing to me.
It's mind-boggling when everybody from the city is about to raise their hand to spend $88,000 for an ambulance. That very ambulance can't respond to the 2 calls that came in during that meeting. That would be enough for me to say, why am I voting for this ambulance? Why am I bringing this in? Yeah. I've told you that the council is a dog and pony show. I'm going to tell you something. Before I was the chairman of the county legislature, I was the deputy majority leader. And you know what the job of the deputy majority leader is? It's the job to whip everybody into the right direction so we have enough people to vote and pass legislation that the leader of the legislature wants passed.
Yeah.
And that the majority of the members want passed. And there's a host of people that sometimes are unwilling to support that legislation. And it was my job. It's almost like being a hired bully to bully those people into, voting for that stuff. Now you do it with some kind of couth, but then sometimes you're like, look, we need you to vote for this. And then there's other times you can look at somebody and they'll come to you and say, I can't vote for that because you know what? If I vote for that in my district, I got a tough election. It's going to hurt me. And then you'd count the votes and you'd say, there's enough votes. We'll give you a pass. Go up, stand up, say your 2 cents, make yourself look good. But we have enough votes. We're not worried about it.
Well, look,
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened here in Cohoes.
Well, what happened further is Bill Smith, he got a copy of this new contract that he was going to vote on at 5:53 p.m. for a meeting that was scheduled for 7 o'clock. And this meeting was scheduled with only a 48-hour notice. Okay. It was supposed to be on a Tuesday, moved it to a Thursday, and they posted on the city website 48 hours notice. That's not that, that violates the open meeting law. You have to have at least 72 hours unless you call for a special meeting, and they didn't list it as a special meeting. So you had to be knowing what's going on in order to get to that meeting. And our podcast and my page, it lets people know. And the bottom line is Bill Smith himself only had an hour and 7 minutes to be able to read through that contract and try to put together questions. And that's not enough time to read and understand it. Why did we end up with a 16-7, Shawn, where it's not defined?
Right. Here's the problem. Again, they don't care about Billy Smith. They know Billy's going to be a strong voice for what he believes is right. So they just cast him aside. They work within the perimeters of 5 guys, right? And what they got to say is, okay, we have 5 guys, and Billy Smith is always going to vote the way he wants. We don't know how he's going to vote. So how do we control the 5 guys? Tim, I'm sorry.
That's all right. No biggie.
Yeah.
So it's real.
Yeah, right. I got a bad cold. So how do we control the 5 guys? So Adam Biggs has a pretty difficult, if in fact he's on the ballot, a very difficult opponent, a well-respected opponent, and one that's going to give him all he can handle. So he's been attacked now, and I'm going to use you as the one who's attacked him on his principles and how he's handled this whole situation. So now he starts with, we're going to have this meeting, we're going to have that meeting, and we're going to have this input, we're going to have that input. So now it's time to vote for this $88,000 a month ambulance. The one that can't even show up the night they're getting voted in.
Right, and I don't attack him. I hold him accountable.
Well, I sometimes you have to attack him, Timmy. I think it's the same thing, right? I didn't say you attacked him as a man.
No.
I'm saying you attacked his principles in this ambulance issue.
And his policy, right? Yeah.
And his policy, and you should attack his policy because it's a terrible policy. But his position was, okay, I'm going to vote no, but we're going to put together this, what is it called? Task force.
Right.
You know what that is? That's bullshit. That truth, lies, and political bullshit. That's political bullshit. It's theater. It's but it gave him cover because he goes to the mayor and says, Mayor, I got to do this because I got a tough race. And the mayor says, don't worry. Billy's going to vote no. You're going to vote no. That still gives us 4 people. So we'll still pass. Go do what you got to do. Say what you got to say. We'll get the numbers. It will pass. He comes out and looks like he's got an independent mind and he's going to do an independent thing. When the reality is it's all pre-rehearsed and it's all done well before the meeting. I've been there for 13, 14 years. I know how the game's played, Timmy. So if anybody thinks that was some kind of like, I'm a good politician, I'm doing the right thing move, it's baloney. It was pre-rehearsed. They knew who was going to vote what. We always took the vote count before the votes. We know who's going to vote what. And so he voted that way. And then I'm just shocked with the union, right? The firemen's union then comes out and says, we're so happy. We're so thrilled that they're going to have this committee. The union is brainwashed. One minute they're bashing the city. Next minute they're praising the city. They need to know what they stand for. They either stand for getting the shit done correctly and getting it fixed right, or just stop complaining, because you can't say this is good for the city at $88,000 a month, because the firemen make good money, don't they?
Yeah, they do. And
So when you start,
yeah, and after that meeting, Adam comes up to me after he put the resolution for a task force, which passed unanimously, by the way. He says, "Well, don't I get any credit for this?" I said, "Well, you should have done it in the first place."
yeah, you
But
don't
yeah,
have a
but
task force after the fact. What's the task force going to do? Oh, it's firemen, it's politicians, and it's members of the community. Well, first of all, I'd love to have community involvement in things they're very understanding of. But why do I
you
want to have people have a seat at a table on issues they really don't know nothing about?
here's the way I see it, Sean. Okay, I say you got a council with 6 members, and you got 2 people that are not voting members. That's Chief Fod and that's Mayor Kaler. Okay, those two take them out of the loop, and the council's got to start doing their job, what they were elected to do. Okay, and if they get themselves together and they do this on their own, okay, and they say, look, Fod is out of the picture. We don't want to hear from him anymore. And the mayor, you're not a member of the common council, so you stay out of it too. And let these people got to sit down and pin this thing down. Okay, that's how I view it. All right, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, shoot
No,
away.
no, I'm just saying it's a dog and pony show. People ain't stupid. The firemen need to stand on their principles. They can't get wishy washy here. They can't say that it's a good deal for the city to be paying $88,000 because they're going to end up losing. Mark my words, write it down. You heard it here
Yeah,
first. They're going to go down to 4 guys a day. The city don't have the money to pay them $90,000 a piece,
yeah,
$1 million for an ambulance, and
yeah,
still have all of the other services they need to have, and and try to continue to provide other services within the community and give raises to other people. It becomes too much. You can only tax people so much. So the firemen better open up their eyes because they're making some bad choices, in my view. I was the president of the union. I understand how it works. Fight for your principles. Don't take a task force as something that's something to cheer about. It's after the fact.
yeah. And look at and look at financially here. What's going on too is we're going to be seeing the Cohoes School District increase their budget by $5 million. Of course, they're staying under the tax cap of 1%. Okay, but still, a $5 million increase in spending.
I know
It's
it's
when you
crazy.
look at that and then you look at what's going on with the city. Okay, I don't know how we can sustain this.
You
You're looking
can't.
at a community of under 18,000 people, and we have between the school and the city $75 million a year.
You can't sustain it, Timmy. These are the
You
things.
can't.
When I was in office, we would sit down on a daily basis and say, listen, this is how much the people can afford to pay. This is how much we can afford to spend without raising taxes. And we have to look at creative solutions.
Yeah,
I see no creative solutions. I see mess after mess, and then just trying to fix the mess the best they can, which is being fixed by making more of a mess. And the amount of money is just staggering.
yeah,
And I'm going to tell you something. If they raise taxes 10%, that's $700 a year for me. They raise them 12%. I'm almost $800. Who can afford another $80, $70 a month just in city taxes, and then the school taxes, and then you see your services cut, and then it just, again, it snowballs. Right now the city is in this it's like watching a guy on those movies where he's the disasters. He's skiing off the top of the biggest mountain and he falls.
mayhem.
What happens? Boom, 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 boom. He just keeps tumbling, and it's faster and it's faster and it's faster and faster. And all of a sudden, bam! He's at the bottom and he's crunched into 50 pieces. That's what's happening. It's a disaster, and
Nate.
people
Yeah,
need to see it.
yeah, and look at this last meeting. Napier gives up to give his quarterly report. Okay, he has nothing in his hands, no paper, no stats, no nothing, and all he does is get up there and he says, "Well, we got $10 million from the state, and we're going to be doing some downtown work." Well, doesn't specify what. I'm going to tell you, it's the biggest waste of 65 or $68,000 a year job for a guy who has no clue of what he's doing in his position in economic development.
Timmy,
Okay,
first of all, you are absolutely right. There is not another economic development director in the state of New York or across the country for that matter that has the qualifications of Steve Napier in economic development, which is zero.
Right.
Zero.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
don't bring one of the most important jobs in the city, which is the way that you bring in revenue and make revenue rather than taxing the people, and bring in a guy who knows nothing. So far, the only thing I can tell you that he's done well is screwed up everything.
Well,
he bought shit shacks and it cost $25,000 in a loss.
Right, 25,000.
Now mark my words.
And where's the accountability?
He had nothing to do with the $10 million.
No.
He didn't write the plans. He knows nothing about it. He has no clue.
We won it.
And we won it. And the application was probably done by the planner. Or they went outside and hired somebody, which is somebody who's a professional in the application. Now, granted, the application has changed and the downtown has got bigger, because when we filed the first 2 years, we got denied because they said we stretched the downtown too far. We went down to Mohawk Street. Okay. These guys have gone down to Ontario Street. But we were told, no, you can't, your application stretched the downtown too far, so we can't use it, because the city downtown doesn't go all the way up to, Bevan Street or all the way down to whatever street. It was strictly like downtown.
Right.
And now when you look at their application, it goes all the way up to, I think, Bevan or up into that neighborhood and all the way down Ontario Street. Mm-hmm. So the rules have changed based on who they want to give it to. Yeah. And I'm glad that they got it. Hey, for those people who think we just criticize, congratulations, because one of the greatest accomplishments is that we won a competition and got the $10 million. How we won it doesn't matter. The political bullshit doesn't matter. We got it.
We got it. And it's good for us.
Here's the problem. You're not going to get the investment you need to make any of that money matter. So here's an example. So I think the John Nolan property, which is the food circus, right?
Yeah.
If that's the name of, I forget what his name is now. He's got all those big apartments that could be on top of that, right? As you're coming down past the bowling alley, you see all the windows. It would be a beautiful loft apartments, right?
Yeah.
But that project says he's going to invest like $4 million, and the city's going to give him $900,000. You think he's got $5 million to invest in that property?
Right.
Now, when you go down further and you look at the fire site, right? The fire site talks about a strip mall at $12 million with $2.6 million coming from the city. Who do you know is going to invest $10 million on Ransom Street today? Nobody.
Yeah, nobody. Not with it being
so outside of
just
no way.
Drive up and down Ransom Street. Half the stores are closed.
Outside of the governmental projects, which means the government's going to put up the money and they're going to get a match, most of those projects probably won't even come to fruition. Because who's going to invest that kind of money?
Nobody.
I know that it's hard to get that kind of money, because we were trying to get that kind of money when the city was booming. And we would get $3 million, $2 million, $1.5 million. We ended up with $75 million in investment. That's a lot of private money. Yeah. City of Cohoes today is not going to see a quarter of that, a fraction of that, and all those dreams of what they're going to build. That's not going to happen, because I don't know any developer who wants to invest $12 million on Ransom Street.
Well, one good thing I see going on is they are replacing a lot of sidewalk there on Columbia Street.
That's a beautiful grant. I said that a couple shows ago.
And
it looks like it's going to be beautiful. And the kids of Cohoes who walk to school deserve that.
Yeah.
And so I said kudos to the city for getting the phase 2, or is that phase 3? I don't know if it's still part of phase 2. Yeah. Whatever phase it is, congratulations and well done.
We do need a solution for the, that wall, okay, that's crumbling, and also the wall at the end of Manor and North Mohawk Street.
Now, I don't know if that wall is going to be fixed or not. I told you there's issues with it being private.
Right.
That's going to have to be a legal battle, and I don't know if any money was in that grant to do it. I hope it was.
Yeah.
We were working to try to do that. It was a little more complicated.
Yeah, I can imagine so, but why put in all brand new sidewalks and then you got a shit looking wall there?
Because here's the reality, right?
Yeah.
You can only build what they're going to give you the money to build for.
Right.
And even if you're putting a beautiful sidewalks next to a shitty wall, at least the kids can walk without tripping up to Columbia Street. I pray that the wall is part of it, because it deserves to be part of it.
It would be nice.
If the city can't get the grant to fix that wall because it's a private wall, then they should put a wooden wall up in front of it or something to just hide it without
Yeah.
interfering with it, so that they can say, "Hey, we didn't touch their wall. Here's our wall," right?
Well,
Something.
and the way they're doing this sidewalk, that's a possibility. I mean, because along that wall, it seems to be a lot wider.
Yeah.
Maybe they will do something like that. We'll just have to see. You know, it would be nice to be able to see actually the plan that these guys are working on.
It may
It's
be
not post.
it may be available.
Hmm.
I'm sure it is available. Look at
Yeah,
that's a good thing the city's doing. The American Legion's
yeah,
a good thing. The
yeah,
sidewalks are a good thing. That
yeah,
doesn't mean that we have to not talk about the bad things.
right.
The
Yeah,
city of Cohoes is not in the best position right now, and I don't
no,
see it getting better. Sidewalks don't fix money problems. It just helps, right? You can, what do they call
yeah,
it? Shine and shit, right?
yeah, yeah,
Uh, so my prayers is that they get their finances under control, because it doesn't matter how much you do. We can only pay so much, Tim.
yeah.
People
And you
get
know,
priced right out of their
right,
houses.
right. And you know, look at just to talk briefly about the elections. Okay. Um, it's starting to seem to me that the primaries, June, um, is not going to really make a big difference on June 27, because most of these guys that are running on a Democratic ticket are also running as independents or other working parties too. So I think really what's going to happen is seating is going to be based more in the general election in November. You know,
Yeah, I don't see it that way, Tim. People
uh,
have been running on those minor party lines in the city forever. At the end of the day, if you don't win the Democratic primary, chances are you're done. I mean, Cohoes is a Democratic city. People vote across the Democratic line. They don't really take a look down on the other lines. And if you're conservative, you'll vote on the conservative line. If you're independent, I don't even think
yeah,
there's an independent party line no more. Republican line. You may have a few hundred conservatives, maybe a
yeah,
thousand Republicans, but not enough to overcome the 5 or 6 thousand Democrats. And it's look, at I know because I did it. I won on a minor party line. My first election, I was the first person ever to
yeah.
win in the city of Cohoes in a non-democratic line, and it was a lot of work. And
Well, I think
it's
lightning
hard.
can strike twice.
I,
So we'll
well,
see.
I,
We'll
I,
see.
I lay a bet here on the show with you that it doesn't strike twice. Because if you think
Oh,
that
you
Ed
do.
Kenner's going to win on a minor party line, I would bet you I bet you half of your house. I want the garage side. I need a garage.
Oh, you do, huh?
Um, I don't see it happening. I don't even see it coming even close.
Mm.
I
Well,
mean, now if you have somebody who's really popular, now I'll say Tommy Dion, if he doesn't get on the Democratic line, he may have a shot in a small little race for city council, because you're not going to
yeah,
need a ton of people.
right.
See,
Well, that's
here's what
what I'm
happens.
thinking.
In the city of Cohoes, there's a lot of people. Like, I used to be able to look at the list of voters, and I knew 85% of them. I
Yeah,
know this one. I know this one. I know this one. I know this one. I know everybody. I knew everybody. I look at those lists today. I don't know anybody. So the difference is, if you're running on an Ed Kenner citywide, if you're not a Democrat, they're just going to run right across the line. But if you're running in a small little district where maybe 250 votes are going to come out to vote, 300 votes, I don't know how many people vote on the Hill,
hmm
700. But if you only need 400 or 500, I think you can do it
yeah.
in a small race.
Well, this is what I'm thinking about more so council in council races. I mean, look at the island now. I mean, half of the island, or a good portion of it, from Bridge Avenue South. Okay, that is they all going to vote in the third ward. So
Yeah,
where they're gonna say, what are they gonna do? Where does the third ward normally go vote? Is it
it's
at
probably up to the Abraham Lansings
Lansing School?
or
So
at the KFC,
you know, right. So now the
Knights of
people that
Columbus.
right now the people in that area of Van Skyke Island now, okay, are now gonna have to probably go off of the island to vote.
Well, I think that's why Tommy Fife wins the race.
Yeah,
I don't think the ambulance is the decision maker, right? I think that's going to put the cherry on top of the ice cream. But
yeah,
I think the people are going to vote for Tommy Fife because they perceive that Justin Alessio lied to them,
Oh, he
because
certainly did.
he made it very clear, I will not vote to split the island. And I'm going to tell you what I think happened. And I'm going to use my years of
Yeah.
experience. You remember earlier in the show, I talked about how the whip calls the people, gets them in
Sure.
line to
Yeah.
vote,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And those who can't, long as we have enough, we'll say, okay, right? You go
Yeah.
the way you have to. We have enough votes. I think Alicio, counting the votes, said, well, I won't vote for it and Billy Smith, but everybody else will, because it's not a topic for anybody on the Hill. It's an island issue, right? So I'm not going to vote for it. Smith won't vote for it. It will pass 4-2. Here's the kicker, okay? Once again, when you don't know what you're doing, you get yourself caught in the mousetrap. It was a local law. You need 5 out of the 6.
Right.
So when he made the commitment that he wouldn't support the bill or the law, he did so not understanding the math.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they went back to him and said, Justin, you got to vote for it, because if you don't vote for it, we don't have it, because Smith's already not going to vote for it, and we won't have enough people. And it passed 5 to 5. They had 5 people that voted on it to pass it.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what you have. You have a guy that was going to make the political statement, make a political vote, and he got himself jammed up because he didn't know what the vote needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
He probably calls the mayor and says, I'm going to take a pass. He says, not so fast, my friend. I can't have you pass because we won't have enough.
Yeah. That's what
Now,
happened.
somehow they played this little game and Donnie Russell didn't show up, right?
Yeah.
So it still had 4 votes, 4 out of 5, which
Right.
makes it 2/3 or whatever the number comes out to be. Now, I always believed that it had to be of the whole body,
It is the whole body, actually.
but somehow they got it to be where it's just 4 out of 5.
Well, Shawn, they did this with the ethics board selection too. Okay, you require a supermajority vote in order to appoint a member of there. Okay, we got Charlie Valenti on there who only got 4 votes. Now everybody that does, I mean, I even saw something where when you were mayor, a supermajority is a majority plus 1.
It's 50 plus 1 on that
Right.
size of
So
the
so you got to have a majority, which is four in our council.
right.
That's a majority plus 1,
Right.
5. All right.
Correct.
Billy McCarthy and they appointed Charlie Valenti to the ethics board with only 4 votes. And when I caught him up on it the very next day and said, no, 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 no. What did McCarthy do? Instead of taking a high road and try to fix this thing, right? And saying, sorry, Charlie, you didn't get the votes. McCarthy turns around and tries to change the voting requirements where all they needed was 4 votes in order to pass. And then that didn't even pass because Alicio didn't show up. So, I mean, so it failed 3-2. This council has a problem with numbers. They manipulate the votes, okay? And when they don't have enough votes, they try to change the law. And McCarthy did do this.
I told you in the beginning of this conversation, the city is spiraling out of control from all different reasons. All different reasons. One being they can't understand the basic rules of their own body.
That's true.
2, they don't understand the basic rules of the state law for open meetings.
That's true.
3, they don't understand their own vote. Right? They don't
true.
understand supermajority versus majority.
They don't. Nope, they don't.
They don't understand how to deal with a fire department, a police department, a DPW department. They have this. They have this a system in place where if you speak out against me, we punish you at the highest levels.
Right, you get 20 days for suspension for calling the mayor a clown on your own time.
We're trying to be this super green community, and we're spending $600,000 to pay for lights that used to be $400, and telling everybody that there's a savings.
Yep.
We got an ambulance that costs more than it's ever cost in the history of Cohoes. Yep. We got a 15% property tax threat coming our way. Yep. We give out as soon as we tell the city that they're looking at a 15% tax increase, we start raising everybody's salaries by 8 and 9% over the next 4 years. Listen, I don't have the answers, other than incompetence shines.
And look, and here's my fear. Okay, I certainly hope the civil engineers who are studying this floating solar system on our reservoir. I'm looking at how thin walled that whole embankment, which is just an earthen dam. Okay, I fear this is just me. I fear once you just put in 8,000 solar panels in the array that it takes, and all that weight and the water displacement, and then they're anchored along the side of that all four way. If anything goes wrong with that thing and there's a breach, you're going to have millions of gallons of water flowing down Valette Boulevard. And that's my biggest fear of why I have concerns about putting solar there when they have reservoir number two right down the what is it, a half a mile at most down there.
They took the reservoir that was
Right.
the reserve reservoir and they filled it up for the last 20 years. And
Right.
now what it's just become is an overflowing puddle that
Right.
drenches the houses of all those people who
Yeah.
live down the bottom of that hill. And they do nothing to try to fix it. Again, these are problems after problems. Look at when you're
Yeah.
the mayor of the city, you're going to run into a lot of problems. There's
Yeah.
going to be things that creep up that nobody's ever had to deal with before. And to me, that's the sexiest part about being a leader, right? I don't
Yeah.
want to lead in the calmest of seas. I want to fix the problem when we have a hurricane. That's what
Yeah.
I live for, right? I live
Yeah.
for, I became a fireman because running into a burning building did something exhilarating to me, thinking that I can help save people who would otherwise run away. When I was in the city, every time a problem came that nobody knew the answer, I couldn't wait to dig into it and try to fix it. That's what leaders do. They don't just steer the ship in the calmest seas when the sun is shining. That doesn't give you no experience, and it doesn't make you better for the game, right?
Yeah, hey, have you seen off of Cohoes Boulevard, that what they call Whitehall Street, where
Yeah,
they were doing all the cleaning up down there? Have
yeah,
you driven by? That looks really, really nice right now.
yeah. So
And
I mean, let me tell
I'm
you a little bit about
hoping,
that.
right, but I'm hoping the city does something really, really good with that. Okay, gets access to Cohoes Boulevard. But what is your vision on? It
Well, that
really
was
looks
we
really
were looking
nice
at
to me.
having a brand new. We were really working hard at having a brand new grocery store,
It would
and
be nice.
and all those buildings would have been gone, and there would have been a huge grocery store in there,
Yeah.
and um, and it didn't come to fruition because I'm not there, and I don't know if they continued the conversation. But I could tell you that that project was not supposed to start for another 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Mike Jacobson, who was my economic development director, and myself, we had a meeting with National Grid, and we kind of bartered. They needed to get some work done in the city that was supposed to, be X amount of years out. They came in and got that work done immediately. We got them to clean up because we had some opportunities for great economic development there. So they made the agreement, went in and cleaned up because the place has got had so much toxic waste there, right?
Yes.
So it really was going to be something exciting. I can't tell you what it's going to be now because I'm not there, but I doubt it's going to be a grocery store because they're not
Right.
easy to get, and you really have to have a lot of connections. And we were struggling. At one point, we had. I'm not look at. I might as well just share it now because it's not a secret. But John Nolan is one of the guys who's getting eight or 900,000 for some of his buildings. But John Nolan is one of the guys who I personally believed, whether it's factual or not, I don't. My personal belief is he stopped a lot of progress in the city. He owned a bunch of buildings. He didn't take care of them. They had all kinds of code violations. We tried to buy them off him because we had an opportunity to put a grocery store right in the middle of downtown. And he held that up and wouldn't work with us. So that went out the window. And then we finally found the place where they're building the car wash now. We were
Mm-hmm.
working with Price Chopper to develop that lot to put a super center there. I don't know what happened to that after I left because that didn't come to fruition. But we had all these big projects just waiting to bust the ground, Timmy.
Yeah.
And I don't know where they are now. But the city codes needs a better price chopper than the shitty price chopper they have now. They deserve that. They have 18,000, almost 20,000 people. Plus, you
Yeah.
have 20,000 cars passing down through 787 every day.
Yes.
The difficulty is, I remember them saying to me, "Where were you just a few years ago? We would have loved to put one there, but we just built the super center in Watervliet, and we can't compete with ourselves. We're only a couple miles from Watervliet, Cohoes, and Latham."
Mm-hmm.
So we started working with other developers. And I would tell you, we were really, really close to having the one in the middle of, well, not in the middle, but down at the end of Ransom Street, which
Yeah,
would have been an amazing achievement for the city of Cohoes.
yep, yep.
But I don't know if all these projects are going to happen anyway, Timmy, because the amount of private investment seems astronomical for the times that we're in right now.
Well, I think when Remsen was booming, pretty good. Okay, everybody was excited and wanted to get in, but that's not the case. What did Adam Biggs ask Steve Napier during the last meeting? One question he had for our economic developer: are we still going to have Eat in the Street again this year? I mean, why didn't he say, are we still going to have Rock the Block, which draws thousands? Okay, Eat in the
Well, why
Street.
would he
What
ask?
does that do? It does what for what? 4 restaurants now?
But why would you ask the economic development director about special events or recreational events?
Yeah,
That's what I'm telling you. They're paying this man to be the head of economic development, and he's not doing economic development because he doesn't know how. He doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't
yeah,
know the connections. He don't have no friends that he can call upon and say, "Can you please come and look at our city and
yeah.
invest millions of dollars?" He doesn't have any of that. He
No,
knows
does
nothing about the process. He knows nothing about the connections that you need. So what do? They say, "Oh, go to Eat in the Streets."
yeah,
One of the things that they talked about in the $10 million is piping music to the downtown.
right. $39,000 is what the
Thirty-nine
quote
thousand
was.
dollars to listen to the dentist office throughout the whole downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's ridiculous.
Well, Napier proposed that, but found out after the fact because it's he usually he has the ideas first, and then when he looks at the reality of doing it, okay, it wasn't practical, it wasn't feasible. There wasn't a way to really do it. So
Well, so let's say they
and
have the grant now, and they're going to
right,
have 38 speakers going through down the. What are they going to play?
yeah,
Jingle bells. All. What are they going to play? And who
yeah,
wants to hear, music that you don't want to hear while I go to places where I want to hear the music that I like and eat the food that I like. I can sit
yeah,
outside. They have a little band playing. That attracts me, right?
right. And you
Going
got these
downtown
right,
and sitting down and eating, listening to dentist music isn't really
right.
going to attract me.
Right. And you got different businesses having their own little bands next to each other. Okay. Hey, can you turn yours down there? We're playing ours and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah,
It just,
it's just,
it, it, it
I
just
don't know.
was a disaster, really. I
Eating the
never look
Streets is
at,
not a economic development project.
well,
It's a
it,
special event.
it was intended really for COVID to help businesses flourish during, stay afloat. But, COVID is officially over now. Why not just set up on the sidewalk?
I'm going to tell you that one of the good things that the city did and I enjoyed it, was Eating the Streets. I
Yeah.
really did. But it can't become like every single day, all year long. It's not it's got to like excite you, right?
Yeah.
You got to go and say, hey, it's the third Friday of the month. They have Eating the Streets. Let's go down and catch a band and have something to eat.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But having it every single day, if I had Rock the Block every single day, it wouldn't be rocking the block, right? It'd be just come
Right.
the norm.
Right.
So you have these things and you make them exciting and you make them so people can't wait till the next one comes.
Yeah.
And I think Eating the Streets was a great idea. And Debbie Jakes, I think, came up with the idea. She didn't invent it. It's done in a lot of southern parts of
Yeah.
the country where you can eat outside.
Right.
But I think Debbie had the idea of bringing it here, and I think it was back when Mike Jacobson was here, because I remember having the conversation with Mike about it and when should we have it and how can we have this type of thing. And I don't know exactly what we were talking about because they were working on it from the infinite stages. But I think Debbie Jace was the one who brought it here. And I give her kudos because it did help the restaurants. It was good for the city. It was a good event. Just like when we had the event up in Craner Park. We had a big festival up there. We had 3 great bands. It was 5, 6, 700 people
Yeah.
packing the place.
Yeah. I remember that.
And
Yeah.
that was supposed to be a twice a year event because I wanted to have events everywhere. Because for me, I believe this, right? I believe
Yeah.
that the city should help drive people to the community, and then good businesses will do good if they have good businesses. If they don't have good businesses, they'll
Right.
end up fading away and somebody else will come in, right?
Right.
If
You
they have a
got.
good restaurant, people are going to come to it. If you have
You,
music at the music hall, people are going to come. The other day, there was a Led Zeppelin band there. It looked like they packed the place. But you want to know something? I walked downtown. None of those people came from the music hall, went downtown. None of them came early to eat downtown and then go up to the music hall.
Yeah.
That's the difference. We had a system where people would come to the city 2-3 hours before a show and they would visit the restaurants. And then they'd go to the show and then they'd go back down. And you know what? Every single show, Timmy, two cops were out in front of that music hall when they got out.
Yep.
The golf cart was going up and down the street, so people felt safe going up and down the street. And when everybody came out of the music hall, the two police would walk the beat. So
Yeah.
Ransom Street had two cops walking up and down the street, the golf cart with cops in it going up and down the street. People felt safe. They used to say to me, "Oh, we love this city. We don't feel." We walk out of the music hall, we go down to the restaurants, and no matter what time we're walking up and back, there's cops there. I feel comfortable. This is a nice community. We love it. When you get out of the music hall now, there's no cops there. There's no golf cart going up and down the street. They ain't going to the downtown businesses. That's what I'm saying. Things have changed. Something has changed, and then you know what? It's the charisma has changed. The Cohoes crowd has changed. The people in office who are inverts have changed.
Yeah.
I dance down the street with the people.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd serve beer at the Rock the Block. I may even have a couple after the show.
Yeah.
But I made sure that everybody was entertained and had fun. Those days are missing. Right now, the city is just in a awkward position.
Yep. I agree. Well, look at I think that's pretty much all I've got for the day. Unless I follow up on whatever messages I'm getting here.
What do you got? What messages?
Well, my inbox is getting flooded in with a bunch of things here from some of my whistleblowers. Okay, I'm not ready to put information out yet on that, but I think our next podcast should be able to dive into a few things that are new besides the ambulance.
Yeah, good. Thank God, because I'm tired. I'm tired of talking about the ambulance. It's
Right.
important. So we
Yeah.
keep talking about it. People need to know about it. I guess we could close by saying the ambulance now has an $88,000 monthly bill. We'll have two ambulances in the city, one for 24 hours, one for 16 hours. We don't know when the 16 hours starts. We know that during the meeting when they were voting for this company, the company didn't even have ambulances to come. We had to get them from the Mohawk ambulance. We know when there was a fire the other day, they didn't have an ambulance to go to the fire. They had to call other cities to come in. We know that this is just a jumbled mess.
Yep.
I guess we'll have to stay tuned and find out how these so-called committees work in fixing the problem. But I wouldn't hold my breath. But yeah, it's time to move on to some new stuff. Let's hopefully talk about some real good stuff happening in the city next week. Some bad stuff that's happening, some ugly stuff that's happening. And in the meantime, I really appreciate people tuning in. Shawn Moore's Truth, Lies, and Political Bullshit. I'm signing off. I got a bad cold. I've choked 3 times, and I've been drinking my soda during the show. So I'm going to go get some rest. And Timmy,
Yeah, right
always good to
here,
see you.
right here in the Fifth Ward page, guys. If you want to find out what's going on, just log on to the page or just visit the page, and you'll see. As information comes in my way, I vet as much as I can, and I put it on out there. And I always ask people, look at draw your own conclusion.